3. Zero Kara Hajimeru Isekai seikatsu. Arc 1, Chapter 4. Compensation for lap pillow. To Subaru, the feeling of waking up was rather similar to the sensation of raising his head out of water. Rays of sunshine assailed his pupils, and the next moment his eyelids parted, causing him to grimace as he rubbed his eyes. He was rather good at waking up. Once his eyes opened, his consciousness would soon fall. Ah, you are awake, a voice directly overhead. As Subaru turned to face it, his body still on the ground, he realized that his head was resting on something rather soft. Don't try to move just yet. Your head was hurt, so it's not safe. The voice worrying about him was gentle, and the sensation under his head was one of supreme bliss. Subaru thought back to what had happened before he lost consciousness and concluded that he was currently experiencing one of the greatest boons a man could receive. Holy crap! The duty is giving me a lap pillow. Taking advantage of his divine blessing, Subaru started to toss and turn, enjoying the feeling of her thighs through his heart's contact. His circular motions brought delightful sensations to his feet. His face wrapped in a fluffy. Man, pretty curls are a lot hairier than I thought. Like hell. Glad to see your. Glad to see your friend, Maya. Subaru played the straight man as he looked up, now fully lucid. He could properly see what was before him. In his inverted line of sight was the face of an absurdly huge cat. Its expression was relatively enraging as it formed what seemed to be a smile. I decided to be considerate and offer you some comfort until you woke up. First of all, quit doing that terrible work. Having ended up in this absurd situation of receiving a lap pillow from a human-sized cat, that was Subaru's only request. He then went back to enjoying the free sensation since it was so generously provided. Fluffy, so fluffy, just what in the world have you gone and created? God. Oh dear, it seems it was well worth it for me to change size if it brings you that much joy, right? The giant cat shyly scratched its head and winked as if seeking agreement. In the direction of its gaze, at the entrance to the alley, a girl stood with her arms crossed in disbelief. She was the girl who had gone into his eyes and memory before he lost consciousness. So basically, you're the tiny kitty from before. Ha ha ha! Its freely changing size makes it great for transport. It also brightens your day with humorous chit-chat. A cat for everyone goes great with your lifestyle. For more details, please contact the Spirit Association. It nimbly snapped its fingers and started a snail's pitch. The contents weren't really relevant, but Subaru understood that it was probably how it acted. So you ended up staying here until I woke up. Don't get interested. I had some questions for you, so I had no choice but to stay. If that weren't the case, I would have just left you here. Definitely. Just so we are clear on that. When it was emphasized that much, even Subaru couldn't really say much in response. He spoke in a fierce tone as if pressing him. Considering his level 1 communication ability, that was even worse when it came to the opposite sex. All Subaru could do was knock. And that goes for me healing you and letting you enjoy Pug Slap too. It was all for my own benefit, so I'll have you repay me now. You're putting on quite the act, but it ultimately wraps around to be a regular request, isn't it? What goes around comes around, taken to the extreme. But in response to his answer, the girl shook her head with a stern expression. That's not it. I'm making a demand here. Now, you probably know who stole my insignia, right? Subaru nervously accepted her condition, and she, for some reason, lowered her voice and asked me. Subaru couldn't help but tilt his head at this. He had a really strong feeling that he had heard this exact question just before he lost consciousness. Did I hit my head really hard and I was briefly unconscious? You are out for at least 5 minutes, but as far as I know, nothing of the sort happened. Then could it be deja vu? Maybe I have awakened some hidden power that lets me experience the immediate future. Perhaps he should call his ability come back the day before yesterday. Apparently it is a Japanese slang which doesn't get translated. Okay, whatever. It could be rather useful to come up with the right answer to a question. Perhaps it even be possible to prepare for tough tasks or tough questions on tests. His dream started spiraling out of control. I was a second. Quit ignoring me and calm down already, will you? Now, answer me. I have to say, I don't really know. so-called insignia was probably something like those badges like lawyers, prosecutors, members of the defense force, etc. had to prove their identity. Unfortunately, Subaru had no memory of seeing such a thing in the hour or so he was here. Back home, he had a veritable mountain of toy badges he had collected as a child, but he didn't know how to return there, and he'd probably get smashed by her eyes if he tried offering her one. Consequently, his answer couldn't possibly meet her expectations. But the girl simply nodded, not disappointed in the slightest. Ah, I see. That's sad then. But I didn't learn that you don't know anything. That shall suffice as compensation for healing. Her logic regarding our total loss would have shocked the sleaziest offender. Leaving a dumbfounded Subaru behind, she loudly clapped her hands together as if she had completely forgotten it. I'll be going then. Sorry, but I'm in a hurry. Your injuries are almost gone, and those guys probably won't come after you again, considering how scared they were. But wandering into deserted alleys alone at a time like this is basically suicide. Not that I'm worried or you or anything, I'm just warning you. I won't have a reason to save you if this happens again, so you better not expect anything. Her mouth moved rapidly as she spoke at length, perhaps interpreting Subaru's silence as agreement. Then she seemed satisfied as she turned away. Her long silver hair swayed with a movement, and even in that gloomy alley, it had a fairy tale-like luster to it. Subaru's support suddenly disappeared, and he hastily stopped his course. When he looked around, the cat's giant body was nowhere to be found, having returned to the palm-sized form he had originally seen. Floating through the air like a balloon, it turned toward the girl. Sorry about that. She just can't be upfront about such things, this daughter of mine. Don't ring her strange for it. Saying this in a jovial tone, the cat gently landed on her shoulder. She patted its back as if to confirm this, after which it disappeared into her hair. Subaru's eyes followed her dashing form as she walked away, and he thought intently about what the cat had said to him. The real motivation behind her words and actions. It seems that she had been robbed of something really important to her, and she was pursuing the culprit. She then saw a stranger being assaulted and stopped to help him despite this. On top of that, she even wasted her time healing him and watched over him until he woke up, and then repeated her earlier question and deemed that sufficient compensation so he won't feel indebted to her. It was far beyond the level where you could say she wasn't upfront about things. It was the first time in his life he had seen someone so absurdly considerate. From her perspective, there was absolutely nothing to gain from interacting with him. On top of losing her target, she spent precious time healing him. Considering this, it could be said that she had actually sustained a great loss here. She had every right to criticize him, and he would accept all of it. But in the end, she didn't do it, nor did she ask for an apology. Why? According to her, it was because saving him was all part of her self-serving plan. Living like that, you're going to lose everything. He stood up with those words and patted his dirt-covered jersey. The filth made his well-used jersey stand out, but it had sustained no real damage, and most importantly, all the pain from the healing was completely gone. He rotated his shoulders and stretched his leg as he confirmed his conviction, once again realizing just how absurd magic was, and how normal this girl was, having done so much for him and demanding next to nothing in return. Hey, wait up! As she looked around at the spot where the alley connected to the main street, a voice called out from behind her. Smoothing down her hair with her hand, she seemed annoyed as she turned around. What? We have already said everything we needed to say, so we no longer have anything to do with each other. We are merely strangers whose paths intersected for a second. And don't say such hard-ending things. And even if we wanted to end things, I think it's far from over. Her eyes were cold as he approached, as if leaning to her. Some part of him thought this scene was very much like a boy pursuing a girl who had given him the cold shoulder, but he pressed on, spreading his arms to block her back. That thing's important to you, right? Let me help you find it. But you don't. It's true that I haven't a clue as to the culprit's name, background, or fetishes, but at least I know what she looks like. A pretty girl with a snaggletooth and straggling blonde hair. She was shorter than you and flatter too, maybe 2 or 3 younger, but I was like, really? It was a bad habit of his to become tense and speed at extreme speeds when he was at its worst end, a habit that was clearly on display at this very moment. Frankly, even he himself was repulsed by this. There was too much unnecessary claps and pets, chests and fetishes. and using words like pretty girl and really. Just whom am I supposed to be? I gave up on my English in the first year of middle school. In his first year of middle school, he had gotten rid of his English textbook in the middle of summer break, and he had sworn off using loanwords ever since, enacting a personal policy of nice legislation. So how on earth could he just let us teachers? It seemed as though Subaru was about to embark on a journey of self-reflection, full of strain and regret. His back was soaked with cold sweat. His arms were in a dreadful state due to the sweat from his palms and ankles. He was besieged by heart palpitations, restlessness, dizziness, anemia, nasal congestion, and migraines as he stood there. He had driven himself in the corner, and what shamed him was, "You're a strange guy." The girl's voice, her finger on her lip as she slightly tilted her head, as though looking at some exotic animal. She stared at him as if appraising him, and then, let me just say this. I can't offer you anything in return. I'm completely broke. It was all stolen, you see. Relax, I'm basically broke as well. And there's nothing reassuring about that. Consciously ignoring the intermittent injection, Subaru vigorously struck his chest. And I don't need a reward or anything. I just want to thank you. I haven't done anything to deserve your thanks. You already repaid me for the healing. She remained stubborn to the very end. Her obstinate attitude made Subaru smile bitterly and as he continued. If so, I'm helping you for my own sake too. My objective is, that I want to do some good deeds. Good deeds? That's right. If you do a whole lot of them, you get to go to heaven when you die. It's basically my dream life, pleasing about all you want, living as self-indulgently as you want. And it's like it's just waiting for me. That's why you have to let me help you. He didn't understand and what he was saying himself, but he said he wanted to do. He looked as though he had just accomplished some great task, but the girl seemed rather pensive. However, the cat on her shoulder started poking her cheek with its paw. I'm not sensing any malice. Wouldn't it be best to take him up on his offer? You don't have any leads, and you can hardly search the whole capital. But your stubbornness is definitely cute, Leah, but it's foolish to lose sight of your objective because of it. I don't want to think of my own daughter as a fool. The cat shrugged its shoulders as it provoked her, causing her to raise her eyebrow. The next several seconds was filled with strangely exotic and buts. But in the end, I really can't give you anything, you know. Saying this, she took his outstretched hand.